Welcome everybody. It is Tuesday and you are in the kitchen cooking with Evey. So welcome to my kitchen. Every Tuesday I meet you here for a quick, easy to make recipe that is healthy, nutritious, using whole natural ingredients. Every Tuesday on Facebook. I hope you can join me. What my main belief is, eating well doesn't have to be hard. The recipes that I make for that reason are very simple, down to earth, but what they do use is our anti-inflammatory ingredients that help keep us healthy, unlike processed foods, high sugary foods, chemical preservatives that actually work against us. Our body reacts to it, gets inflamed, and causes us to have symptoms such as achy joints or digestive problems. So today we are going to work with seasonal foods, which is another tenet of healthy eating. I've got lovely ripe pears here. You can see they're kind of bruised, but that's good. I want them nice and ripe. Why? Because when they're nice and ripe like this, they're very sweet. And I'm going to be cooking with these to make a wonderful parsnip, pear, and pistachio soup. And thank you to Stephanie Izard, who is the owner of Girl and the Goat, who made this recipe. I'm adapting it a little bit to make it non-dairy and adding in a few little ingredients, little tweaks of my own, but a very delicious recipe. Highly recommend taking a look at her website and seeing what she has there. So we have our pears, as I mentioned, our wonderful pistachios, and parsnips. If you're not familiar with parsnips, they look very similar to a carrot, but they're white. They're a little bit tougher than carrot, but very, very sweet, especially cooked up like this in this soup. So to get started, what we want to do is just do a little prepping. I always start out by prepping my ingredients so that they're ready when I am making them. And that is key to getting a recipe done quickly and efficiently, right? Worst thing is, you're in the middle of something and you don't have a main ingredient that you need. So I'm just going to start out with an onion, and I'm going to prep some garlic. Garlic, the active ingredients that make garlic so healthy actually increase once you cut the garlic up, because you're breaking up the cells and exposing it to oxygen. So I like to get my garlic prepped ahead of time and get it ready. I'm going to be using an Instant Pot for my soup today, but you can also use just the regular pot on the stove. All right, I'm just going to move this off the burner right now because I don't want it to heat up too much. But let's get started by prepping my onion. I don't need to do a very fine dice here. The recipe calls for a small onion. I actually had the half of a rather large onion, so I'm going to be using that today. Onions, again, highly anti-inflammatory. It's interesting, the very compounds that give it that stinky flavor is what is so good for us. Kind of that sulfuric-like smell. So I am going to cut up this onion. I'll show you the dice. It doesn't have to be a very large dice, because what we're going to do is we're going to heat up and cook our broth, our stock, our soup, and then we're going to blend it up afterwards. So I just want these to be small enough pieces so that they cook fairly quickly. So let me just show you what we have here. All right, so let me just grab a bowl to put that in so I can set it aside. I like to use a chopping board that when I'm using my onions that I can clean later on. So I've got some nice small cutting boards to do that. As I said, I'm going to prep my garlic. And if you know me, if you've been watching my cooking shows, by the way, if you would like to find the recipes, they are on my website, www.eveyschweig.com, underneath the recipe tab. So every recipe that I do here can be found again on YouTube, on my YouTube site, and written up on my website, eveyschweig.com. My YouTube channel is Evey Schweig as well. Makes it easier to find me. Although not easier to spell, I know. It's not a very common name, is it? All right. So again, I'm just giving this a rough chop just to expose it, break open some of those cells, activate some of those nutrients, phytochemicals that they contain that help with our digestion. It helps with our immune system, helps fight inflammation. So let me just set this aside. Just going to put that right on the serving plate here. All right, so I have 2 of the major ingredients to start my soup now. Let me grab my pot and get these started. Or at least get this set up so that we can get started. Instant Pot is a wonderful cooking tool. It's actually a pressure cooker. I remember growing up, my mom always having the pressure cooker going and having that noise going as it was working. This is much easier. We're always making sure that the pressure cooker wouldn't explode. These will not explode. It's because pressure builds up on the inside. So I have this turned on now, and I'm going to turn on my saute function. All right, just to get that heating up. While I'm waiting for that to heat up, I'm going to prep my parsnips. Now, parsnip will look like this. I like to peel my parsnips. So I have this parsnip peeled here, but you'll notice that unlike a carrot, the top end of a parsnip tends to be rather wide. The bottom is rather skinny. So when I am prepping my parsnips, I'll cut off the bottom end, the thinner end, and just slice that. And the goal is to have pieces, the parsnip pieces, to be similar in size to what the onion was. So I'm going to cut up about 3 of these sized parsnips. It comes about 3/4 to a pound, 3/4 of a pound to a pound. That's what I'm looking for, or maybe about 3 cups of cut or diced parsnips. So I now have the top here. I cut off the end, but you'll see it's a lot larger in diameter. So what I like to do is cut down the middle, and I will cut again, depending on how wide the parsnip is, cut down into almost like little French fry shapes. I'll turn it sideways and then cut down through them. Now you don't have to cut down through all of them at once. I just do it because I've done it so often now. And you have a nice even dice. So we're looking for about 3 cups of our parsnips. This looks a little shy of 3 cups. I know that this container holds 3 cups. So you know what? Maybe I'll just, I have my peeler here. I'm just going to do a little bit more just to give us enough of the parsnips. I knew I was a little bit shy of what I wanted. All right, so this is a little bit wider. I'm going to cut it in half first, lengthwise, and then I'm just going to cut it across. And as I said, parsnips, the inner core of a parsnip is a little bit tougher than a carrot. So I want to make sure that I cook these for long enough. Now, I can smell that my pot is getting warm here. Let me add some oil to get that heating up. And then I'm going to add in my onions. Let that heat up just a second. I'm going to heat up my onions and my parsnips. Oops, I threw that into the wrong container. Don't do that. So, I've got my parsnips ready, I've got my onions ready, my garlic ready. Some of the major ingredients. By the way, if you enjoy seeing my shows, please, by all means, share, like, join my Facebook group, or subscribe if you're on YouTube. Every time you do that, it helps me reach my message. I reach more people. My goal is to reach as many people as possible to get them to eat more anti-inflammatory foods, to eat healthier, live longer, and look better. So please, pass on the word. All right. All right. My pot is not heating up properly. I don't know why. Let us see. I guess it helps if you put the start button on. All right. Well, we now have our onions that are waiting to start to heat up. Let's get that going. I've got a few onions out here. I'm going to wait. Again, too, if you head over to my website, I have a newsletter with healthy lifestyle and eating tips that I put out monthly for free. So if you're interested in learning more, I also have all those recipes there too, plus additional others. So go ahead and head over there. I'm stalling, can you tell? I'm waiting for this to heat up. All right, so while that's heating up, maybe I'll prep my pears. All right, as I said, a riper pear is good for this recipe. Even if it's a little bit bruised, it's a great way to use up ripe pears if you have them. So I'm going to use 2 pears. So I had 3 parsnips, about 1 small onion. So that was about 1.5 cups chopped. Parsnips are about 3 cups chopped. And I'm going to use 2 ripe pears. Now, little trick. When you're cutting up your pear, if you have a measuring spoon, you can scoop out the seeds. They're right in the middle there, which makes that nice and easy. So you don't have to worry about those getting into your soup. All right, these are nice and ripe. I'm also going to take that same spoon and scoop out the bottom where the stem might be. Now I'm hearing my onions starting to sizzle. All right, so note to self, push the start button first, okay? Okay, good. I'm also now just going to pull out the stem that is there. Okay. So I now have my stems. Let me give you a little bit more room so you can see what I'm doing here. All right, there we go. So I now have 4 halves of my pear. This one looks like it has a little bit more of a top to it. I'm going to take that out as well. All right, very good. And I'm going to cube these, dice them as well. And the way I like to do that is to cut down lengthwise, like so, and then turn them and chop in the other direction. Again, so that we have a nice even dice on our pear. And I'm just going to reuse that bowl and put my pears in there because we're going to add them later on. The rule in cooking is, you know, add the softer ingredients later on if you're cooking because they'll take less time to cook. So, I have my onions in now. I'm going to add in my parsnips. And I'm just going to let them cook for a little bit until the onions start to get translucent and start to soften. Now eventually we are going to cook this in the pressure cooker, but right now what we're doing is we're sauteing, caramelizing those first ingredients so that we really bring out those sweet sugars that are naturally found in these ingredients. And that's one of the tricks of anti-inflammatory eating, is not adding in sugars, but bringing out the natural sugars that are found in natural ingredients. So I've added in now my parsnips and my onions. I wait a little bit to add in my garlic. So let's add that in now. Normally I would give this another few more minutes to cook, but in the interest of time here, I'm just going to add in my garlic right away here. And again, if you're looking for all the ingredients and the amounts, head on over to my website, eveyschweig.com. Under the recipe tab, look under the tab there that says Cooking with Evey. And that's where you will find all of the cooking shows written up, the recipes written up for you, and readily handy. All right. So while that is cooking, I'm going to cut up the rest of my pears here. All right. And this recipe can be made totally vegetarian. I'm going to be adding in a vegetable broth, but if you have chicken broth, it works with chicken broth as well. I love this recipe because it really is quick and simple to make. You can make it on the stovetop as well. If you make it on the stovetop, I would be sauteing all of this in a pot that looks like this, a Dutch oven or a soup pot, and doing that sauteing there first. All right, I have all of my pears cut up now. All right. So I have my pears on the sideline. I added in my garlic. Let me give it a stir. Now, if you find that the bottom of your pot is browning a little bit too much, you can always add a little bit of your broth in early to loosen up those brown bits on the bottom, which I'm going to do just to keep that from browning up. All right, got that going. Good. All right, now it's time to add in those pears that we cut up. Yum. This is going to add a nice sweet flavor, but not just sweetness. It adds in fiber, which is so important to us. Parsnips have fiber, which is so important to balance out the sugars that are found in these fruits and vegetables. So I added in my pears. I have 3/4 cup of pistachios. Now, I bought raw, unsalted pistachios, and I roasted them myself. 250 degrees for about 20-25 minutes, tossing them every now and then. If you buy salted, roasted pistachios, don't add any salt until the end, because the pistachios will add that saltiness to it. So I added in the pistachios now, a little bit of wine. I'm going to add in a 1/2 cup of dry wine. I have a Cabernet Sauvignon here. That will also help loosen up any brown bits if you have some on the bottom of your pot. Can you hear it bubbling? Oh my goodness, yum, yum, yum. Now I'm still on the saute selection while I'm doing this. And I'm going to let this cook for about 2 or 3 minutes, just so that let the flavors start to blend. And while it's doing that, I did open up my broth. I need about 4 cups. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold back on some of the broth. I have a vegetable broth here, an organic vegetable broth. I'm going to hold back on about a ½ cup of the broth and save it so that I can add it in later if I find that the soup is too thick. So, got that going. I'm going to add in that vegetable broth. As I said, you could add chicken broth if you have that. Again, I like to use up what I have in the kitchen. So if you have a chicken broth that you made up from some bones left over, chicken bones and chicken meat, by all means use that. All right, so I've added in now my broth. I want to add in a little bit of zing. So I have a chili garlic sauce here that I'm going to add in. I'm going to add in about ½ teaspoon. Let's make sure I've got, yep, a ½ teaspoon to add a little bit of zing to that. If you like a lot of heat, you can add more. If you don't like heat, don't add as much. Add a ¼ teaspoon and see. You can always add some more later on if you want to add in more of that heat. I am going to add in now about ½ teaspoon of salt because, as remember, I have not added any salt yet because my pistachios were roasted and unsalted. And I'm going to add a little bit of ground pepper. Make sure that's off. I'm going to say about a ¼ teaspoon of ground pepper. All right, wonderful. Okay, and that was just as an estimate. Give it a stir, and I'm going to let that cook. So let me just go over. I always like to check, make sure I've got all my ingredients. I added in my onion, I added in my garlic clove, I added in my parsnips, I added in my pears and my pistachios, my white wine, vegetable broth, and now I'm ready to just let it cook. So if you're using an Instant Pot like I am here, you cover up the Instant Pot, you cancel that saute function, and you go over to pressure cook. And I'm going to have this go for 10 minutes. And I double check, make sure, yes, that is what I had done. And I'm going to push the start button. Good for me. All right, let me now just move this out of the way. And I may have to reset that all over again. But I'll reset it over here. All right, let's get this going. So we've got our pressure cooker going for 10 minutes, and I'm going to start it. Okay. And I'm going to just be able to forget that. That's a good thing, right? So let's clean up our countertop here a little bit. So the only thing that remains to be added at this point is something to make it creamy. And what I'm doing is, instead of adding a dairy milk, I'm going to add in coconut milk. And for something like this, I like to add in canned coconut milk because it has a thickness to it, a richness to it. Couple of things that I look for when I'm looking for coconut milk is organic. I like to find organic, and this brand in particular is just organic coconuts and water. So at Trader Joe's, very well priced too. Unfortunately, I only had 1 can of that, so for today, I'm going to be using another organic milk brand, which is Native Forest. And this one does add a thickener to it. in the form of sorghum. So I would be very careful. Some people are sensitive to sorghum, so if you're looking, there you can find coconut milks that are not, have no additives to it. It's just coconut meat and water. I'm just going to give this a shake. And this is a full coconut milk. It's not coconut cream, but it's coconut milk. So it has a fair amount of fats in it, not quite as much as the cream. And I'm just going to open up. I'm going to use about a cup of milk to add to my soup that's simmering right now. Now, I did make up a batch, a half batch, yesterday. So, I'm going to bring back my cutting board, my countertop here, and let me bring over, because I wanted to show you just what this looks like when it is done. And I did add the coconut cream to this already. I forgot that I did. So, but I did want to show you. Let me show you what this looks like now, even before it's all blended up. So you can see everything is nice and soft, all cooked together. The smell is wonderful. All right. And at this point, normally what I would be doing is adding in my coconut cream, coconut milk, sorry. But I just wanted to show you how nice and thick the coconut milk is. You will also see, I think you can tell that there's some solid parts there. That's actually coconut fat. That will mix right in. You want to have that mix in with your soup. It's what gives it some of the richness and creaminess. So now I have my soup here. It's been sitting off the heat for a little while. I reheated it. Let me now bring over my blender. Any blender will work for this because everything is so nice and tender. And what I'm going to do is, using my ladle here, I'm just going to ladle in. Let's see if I can move some things out of the way. Sorry for the noise. All right, make sure I use all my ingredients. I can't tell you, there's been a few shows where at the end of a show, I had that extra ingredient that I forgot to add in. Luckily, everything is written up on my webpage. All right, so we have here now our soup and our container, our blender, and I'm just going to add in our ingredients. Here we go. And I'm just going to do, now remember, this is a half recipe. A recipe will make enough for 4 generous servings. Makes about 11 to 12 cups. If you're doing this as, say, in a first course, you could feed 6 or 7 people. Now, it is hot. Excuse me for making a little noise here. Just going to start it out low to begin with. Give it a little bit. Oh, and I can hear the pressure coming up on my pressure cooker in the background. Pretty soon that's going to be starting its countdown. All right, so let me move our blender out of the way. And let me grab a dish, a bowl. And I have not had lunch yet, so this is going to be my lunch. So I have a bowl here, and I'm just going to take my ladle and ladle out. Now, nice and thick. Now, if you like a thinner soup, remember I set aside some of the broth earlier. I'm going to put out this is about 1.5 cups. I could even add in some liquid to this because this one is nice and thick. And I have some leftover pistachios that I'm just going to use to garnish the top. And then maybe a little bit of color. So I might add in a little bit of cayenne pepper. Just a tad. Just to dust over the top. You could probably even want to try some parsley or fresh sprigs. Add a little green to it. Contrast with the colors that are going on there. But here is our final dish. Yum. All right, let me just take a little bit out here. A spoonful. Yum. Oh, yum. Delicious. It's kind of fun having those pistachios on top. Well, I am going to enjoy my lunch. If you know what, sometimes if you want a heartier meal, it's nice to make this alongside a hearty salad, something or a bowl next to it. But I'm going to have this just like this. This looks great. Again, thank you for coming to my kitchen. I hope you enjoyed this cooking show. Let me know if you try this recipe. It is delicious. And please share, like, join, and subscribe so that I can get my word out to more and more people who are interested in healthy eating just like you. All right? Until next week, please have a wonderful week. Happy Thanksgiving. And I will see you then. Bye-bye for now. Take care and stay healthy.